workplace helping or hindering neurodivergent talent. This is part of our regular webinar series. As I said, my name's Andy. I'm a neurodivergent person and a professional working in the training and consulting space. We run one of these regularly. Today, we're talking about a specific topic, but we run sessions on all kinds of topics as we go. So the mission, Toby's mission in setting up and running Mildon is to create workplaces that build inclusion into the mission critical aspects of their work and how their teams run. So Mildon is an organization working in the EDI space, working specifically with mission critical organizations or looking to work with mission critical organizations and to build inclusion as a kind of active part of that work. Toby and his team have been doing this for a long time now. We have a number of associates who have a range of different specialties, myself included. So the core principles of what we're going to talk about today, about neuroaffirming workplaces. Number one, neurodivergent people face unique challenges in the world of employment. But we also bring some unique strengths, which can be significant strategic advantage. But in order to utilize and access these advantages, organizations have to proactively create the right conditions for us to thrive. And a neuroaffirming workplace is one that recognizes this and takes active and proactive steps to celebrate neurodivergence. And a big part of our work is trying to move beyond the language of accessibility and move into active affirmation. So as a quick starter point, for those who haven't come across this before, the difference between the term neurodiversity and the term neurodivergence. These mean different things. They are often used interchangeably, and I will say it's not a problem if they are. I may well in myself use them interchangeably sometimes, but there is a difference between these terms. Neurodiversity is a sociological term. It refers to the natural differences in thinking and experiencing the world that exist amongst everybody within the population. We are all neurodiverse in that we all have a different experience of the world. And that can be related to our upbringing, our culture, personal characteristics, our attitudes and opinion, our parenting, the things we've experienced in our lives, all kinds of things, right? There is neurodiversity across the whole population. It refers to natural cognitive variation. Neurodivergence, on the other hand, refers to specific, observable, often diagnosable, but not necessarily diagnosable traits that cluster around specific things that we have come to refer to as conditions. Is an imperfect word, but within that list we include autism and ADHD, but we also include dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, OCD. We include complex post-traumatic stress disorder, a wide range of different things, and there really isn't a solid list. It's a kind of open term that includes lots of different things, but the key difference is that these ways of thinking and seeing the world are different in kind of clinically observable ways. Not everybody is neurodivergent. You have to meet certain kind of clinical criteria in order to be neurodivergent. There's some discussion about where that criteria sits, but they are specific and observable, whereas neurodiversity is a broad term to refer to differences in thinking. And if we talk about the two kind of most commonly discussed neurodivergent conditions, we talk about autism and ADHD. These are not the only things on the list. Neurodivergence is often used as a shorthand for autism and ADHD, which is not accurate. But these are my lived experience and the focus of my work, so I'm going to talk predominantly about them today. Autism is based on some key identifiable differences in social communication and interaction and in patterns of behavior and interests. So social communication and interaction can be related to understanding of nonverbal communication, understanding of social cues, understanding of natural flows of conversation, understanding of appropriate and inappropriate topics of conversation. It can relate to challenges with small talk. I personally find small talk excruciatingly difficult. And it can mean that we can sometimes struggle to follow the rhythm and flow of conversations and relationships in the same way that neurotypical people can. It often also means that the way that we communicate non-verbally doesn't match the communication that we are making verbally or the things that we are feeling. So an example for me is that when I'm on a roller coaster, I don't feel any reason to make my face do anything different than what it's doing right now. I could feel excited and I could feel happy, but I don't feel the need to do a big smile or to throw my hands in the air or to scream like other people do on a roller coaster. Um, and if I'm being honest, I thought that people were faking that until probably the last couple of years. I thought that this was something we were all play acting. So the way that we communicate is different. Historically, this might have been referred to as a deficit. It's not a deficit, it's just a difference. We communicate differently. And it can also refer to patterns of behavior and interest, which can include stimming behaviors, which I'm not doing now, but I often do. I'm often kind of moving around, making noises, clicking my fingers, which helps me to focus and relax. It can also include a preference for routine, a difficulty switching between tasks. It can include special interests, things that kind of draw a lot of our attention and can bring us great joy, but can also be take up a lot of our time. But autistic people also report experiencing things that aren't in the criteria, the diagnostic criteria, including a sensitivity to rejection, criticism, or failure, challenges with change, even if that change could be viewed as positive, a discomfort with being observed or being in environments where it feels we're being watched or looked at, a difficulty of being flexible in thinking, some challenges with switching between tasks, and also some differences in sensitivities. I would describe sensory sensitivities as being either undersensitive or oversensitive. I experience a great deal of oversensitivity when it comes to lights and sounds, but I also experience some undersensitivities when it comes to the functions of my own body, which is something that's often missed. So I find it hard to identify when I'm hungry, for example. I find it hard to identify when I am tired. Often I'm only able to identify these things when they reach unbearable levels. So I generally don't feel angry until I'm furious, or I don't feel tired until I'm exhausted, or I don't feel hungry until I'm lightheaded. It can also apply to emotions and things like that. So a sense of how our body is operating can also apply to this. But we also have a number of opportunities that we bring. So some things that autistic people can often be very, very good at include an attention to detail, an honesty, reliability, persistence, logical thinking, pattern recognition, strong sense of justice and integrity, and focus. These are all strengths that I have brought to roles historically, and something I've always known about myself and has always been very prevalent in my career is I work very, very, very quickly. I complete work much faster than my neurotypical colleagues because I hyper-focus, and it's generally completed to a pretty high standard. That is because of my autism. That's a strength. A really good question about stimming. So stimming can be conscious and it can be unconscious. Some people will have stimming behaviors that they deliberately take part in because they know it helps. Other people will do things without realizing they're doing them. I have both. There are certain things that I know will help me, and there are other aspects which I'm doing without realizing. So it can be both. It can be either. It's a really good question, though. And if we talk about ADHD, by the way, I'm aware that I'm doing a disservice here. I could talk all day about these things, right? I'm giving a very brief overview. So I know this is not the most complete explanation, but ADHD is a natural variation in how people focus, how people process information, and how they manage their attention. So people with ADHD can often have differences in how they focus. And the typical way of thinking is that they find it difficult to focus. And I don't think that's actually accurate. I find it very easy to focus if it's something that I feel interested in or engaged in. And if that's the case, I focus incredibly well for long periods of time. But it can mean a difficulty remaining focused on mundane or routine tasks, remaining on a single task for long periods of time is a preference for kind of switching between tasks regularly. And also some challenges with kind of remaining still. And that can be both outwardly and inwardly with my body, but also with my brain. And an energy and impulsivity, a need for constant movement, often acting without thinking things through to the same degree as a neurotypical person might, things like this. But people with ADHD also report time blindness, so a real difficulty understanding how long tasks will take. which can lead to kind of chronic lateness, a disorganization, challenges remaining organized and keeping organized, some emotional intensity, feeling big emotions, either positive or negative, challenges with routine and mundane activities, a need to frequently move between tasks, and also some sensory difficulties and changes, differences as well. Although often sensory sensitivities are more prevalent in autism than they are in ADHD. Yeah, dopamine is a really significant aspect. ADHD is a term which, you know, is problematic, right? It doesn't accurately describe the experience of, you know, of having ADHD. And dopamine is a really very significant aspect of this, in that people with ADHD often don't get dopamine from the same routine, mundane tasks that neurotypical people do. So things like cleaning, doing your job, you know, things like that. Often I don't get dopamine from these things, and therefore I have to seek dopamine in other ways, which often means that I'm bouncing between tasks and activities and engaging in, you know, things that are designed to kind of bring me dopamine, because I don't get that dopamine in the same way as other people. But likewise, ADHD brings a huge amount of amazing things. So a creativity and ability to try new things, right? And think about things in a different way, a resilience, charisma, an ability to speak to people really confidently, excellent in a crisis, adaptable, tenacity, big picture thinking, and a curiosity. My business partner, his primary profile is ADHD, and he is this to a T. And he's one of the most, you know, impressive people I've ever met because of his ADHD, in the same way as a lot of strengths are explicitly related to my autism. So what does this mean for a business? How does this apply? A few key points. Neurodivergent people are, as a population, underemployed, especially people with autism, significantly underemployed, often not working at all, or working in positions that don't make use of their skills and experience. And when neurodivergent people are employed, we're using a huge amount of energy masking, pretending that we are not neurodivergent on things that aren't productive or useful. We bring a really wide range of strengths to our work as a direct result of our neurodivergence, not in spite of it. And organizations that employ neurodivergent people often see really amazing outcomes, but only if they create the right conditions. So, for example, within 6 months of its pilot, autistic employees at JP Chase's Autism at Work program were faster and up to 92% more productive than non-autistic employees who've been in the same role for 3 to 10 years. So very quickly became much more productive than people doing it for a long time. The 4 largest US autism hiring programs, that's SAP, JP Morgan, Microsoft, and EY, all have retention rates above 90%. And EY's Neurodiverse Centers of Excellence report found an increase of 20 to 40% of productivity in quality and timeliness in teams that included neurodivergent members. We not only do amazing work, but we uplift people around us if the conditions are right. And that's the commonality between these case studies, is the conditions were right. So what is a neuroaffirming workplace? This is our framework. This is what we consider to be the principles of a neuroaffirming workplace, and I'll talk you through them one by one in a moment. Number 1, we make neurodiversity a strategic objective. Number 2, we put psychological safety first. Number 3, we create flexibility by default. Number 4, we communicate clearly. And number 5, we listen and we learn. When we talk about making neurodiversity a strategic objective, we're talking about prioritizing it as a business case. Not creating accessible workplaces just for moral reasons, although that is a good reason to do it, but also because we recognize that it benefits everybody. It benefits the organization, and it benefits our neurotypical employees as much as it benefits our neurodivergent employees. And this can be commissioning training to create understanding. It can mean changing our language to move beyond accessibility and inclusion into affirmation and celebration. And it includes actively auditing our workplaces to understand and overcome barriers to participation. We put psychological safety first. Neurodivergent people think and communicate and respond differently to neurotypical people. We need to create the conditions in which we can do that. in which we can unmask, in which we can be vulnerable, in which we can be authentic. And that is the place in which innovation really thrives. So we normalize mistakes, flaws, and weaknesses from the top down. We emphasize the importance of critical evaluation, and we create channels and pathways for people to challenge decisions without punishment. We prioritize interpersonal skills when hiring managers, and we focus on outcomes rather than process. So we focus on people achieving things rather than what they look like and sound like when they're achieving it. We create flexibility by default. That means that we, as much as possible, create workplaces that can be responsive to people's needs as a default position rather than as a response to a perceived challenge that somebody might have. So we don't react, we establish it at the start for everybody. So that means building a trust-first relationship where the default is we trust people to do their jobs and do them well, and we respond to challenges rather than creating restrictions. It means that we do some real critical examination of our flexibility policies. We really push back against cultural barriers if they are not practical as well. And that doesn't mean that everybody needs to work from home. There are roles that might not work for, and organizations that might not work within. But we're honest with ourselves about if we cannot do it, why can't we? We look at our office space and consider the ways in which it supports a variety of ways of working, and we explore the concept of role carving, which is where you may take certain responsibilities from certain people and swap them with other people in the same team to take advantage of natural talents and strengths, rather than trying to brute force our way into people doing things that they are never going to be good at and is going to damage their well-being with trying. Number 4, we communicate clearly. This means that we build a culture in which things are clear by default. So we focus on communication clarity around deadlines, expectations, and targets. We avoid phrases like ASAP. We avoid phrases like do your best. We avoid phrases like give 100%. These are all nightmare phrases for me and have created quite a lot of hassle and stress in my life. And instead, we focus on clarity. We create jargon and social expectation guides. So not just what we can expect from jargon, but also what we expect in terms of behavior from people in certain settings. We provide written meeting summaries, which thankfully is becoming more and more standard. And we use communication menus to capture communication preferences and then enact them proactively. And 5, we listen and we learn. That means both bringing neurodivergent people into this conversation and co-producing the way that we implement it, and also treating it as an ongoing strategic objective rather than a one and done, do a webinar, have an awareness week, and be finished, right? This is an ongoing piece of work. So we provide micro learning, so ongoing learning about neurodivergence. We consider reverse mentoring, which is where we will mentor somebody in leadership with a neurodivergent employee to help guide them through decision making. It means we co-produce policy systems and processes with our neurodivergent colleagues or with external neurodivergent experts by experience. And we treat this as an ongoing strategic aim, not something we do, finish, and move on from. I'm aware I'm moving through these quickly. You can have a copy of the slides so you can review these.